Should you or should you not accept pets? What do you think? This is a pretty common question I get. Look, here's the reality. People have pets. Like most people, according to Forbes, a recent study in 2024, 66% of households have pets. That's about 87 million households have pets. So yeah, okay, that's 2/3 of the population has pets, of the household population has pets. So you're probably going to get pets. That's just the reality of it. So what you want to do is just set up a home that can accommodate pets. That means if you can have hard floors in most of the areas, laminate, linoleum. You don't need real wood. If real wood's there, great, but you don't necessarily need to install that. LVT is a great product. It's called luxury vinyl plank, LVT floors. It's like the old school linoleum that was like around in the 70s and the 80s that was on every house, if you're my age, that you grew up in, yellow countertops and vinyl floors. It's the vinyl of the modern era, but it works out really, really well and it's really great. So consider that. But if you don't have that kind of flooring, that's okay. Let it stay. And then when you replace it, just get that kind of floors, LVT, luxury vinyl plank, or linoleum vinyl, a laminate, woods, like hard tile could even work. But you do want to keep carpet in the bedrooms if you can. You don't have to, but it's always a good rule of thumb because people want some kind of warmth in the home. It just has an illusion. It has a feeling. Real estate's a very emotional business. So you should want to try to accommodate that and understand that you're dealing with, again, people in their homestead. It's a very, needs to feel comfortable. It needs to feel right to them, even as tenants, because you want to maintain long-term tenants, right? Okay. So, but I'm saying all that to say, you're going to need to accept pets, right, Rocky? Rocky, come here. Come here. Yeah. You're going to need to accept pets that like toys. Yeah, he's a good boy right there. A very good boy. You're a very good boy. And you are too, Cypress. There's two of them. Anyway, but it's just a reality of the deal. And I think you just need to accept it. If 2/3 of the households have it, you're probably going to take pets at some point. It's really hard to not, to be honest. And that's just the truth of it. Every now and then you will get someone without a pet. All right. That's one less possibility of a risk. With my pets, for example, truly, I know people always say this, but they really don't pee in the house. They don't chew on anything. Granted, I trained them, but nonetheless, they don't. And it is what it is. Sometimes, and usually you take an additional pet deposit to cover some of that damage. It usually doesn't cover all the damages that they could do, but it's a little bit extra. And then you could limit the type of pet. Sometimes homeowners associations have restrictions for pets, especially like in condos. I've seen this, like no dogs over 25 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever. And sometimes insurance companies restrict certain breeds of dogs, like no Rottweilers, no pit bulls. But I've seen less of that over the years, to be honest, because everybody knows everybody has pets, and a lot of the pets are mixes and mutts and whatever. So cats, if they're declawed, a lot of times cats are house trained with the litter boxes, but they could spray. If a pet does pee all over the floor, you're clearly going to know that because your nose knows. But I will say, one way to get rid of that smell, here's what you got to do. You got to rip up the carpet and the carpet pad. All that needs to go. But if you lay the carpet back on either the concrete subfloor, or if you're on the second level, it's typically a plywood subfloor, which is just wood. You're going to need to Kiltz that. Kiltz kills. Okay, that is a thick priming paint. It's a primer. And it's a moisture barrier. It covers up if there's mold or fungal potential properties not mold, sorry. well, it could do mold, but water damage. Sometimes if you repaint over water damage, you have to put a primer down or you're going to see the water ring come right back. But to cover up pet smells if they pee, because it has this very distinct odor, you can clearly smell the urine, and you have to Kiltz the floor. Just roll it out, let it dry, and then put the new carpet or the new flooring down. If you don't do that, it's a very likely chance that the pet odor could linger. And then I've noticed cat urine is the worst, even more than dog urine. But again, it's just part of the business. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the business. Pets are a part of our life. And if you're going to be a rental property investor, I think you just need to accept that. If you put restrictions on that, it's really going to limit you. And, you know, if you can afford that limitation, you might be in a position where you can't afford that limitation. Everybody isn't always about the bottom dollar in this business, believe it or not. Sometimes it's like people just don't want to sell their rental properties because they're holding on to them for equity purposes, and they don't care so much about cash flow or having the property sit another month or 2 or 3, waiting for the right tenant without pets if you don't want pets. Sometimes, you know, some of my older landlords, like they're just not, they're more secure financially, and they just want the right tenant. They're willing to wait. Sometimes people turn their home into a rental property, and that's a little bit harder for them to come around to having pets because they know the pets have a likelier chance of destroying the home, or could. But honestly, I mean, most pets live inside these days, and versus like 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, most pets lived outside, which my dog did when I was growing up, and I still feel bad about that. But it's okay. It's just how we did it back then, right? It's okay. But now we don't really do it like that anymore. These pets are like our family. Right, Rocky? Right. And we train them, and we love them, and we take them places. And they're just part of our little families, right? So that's how tenants are going to be the same way. And so anyway, that's my thought on that. But, you know, you could try to restrict pets and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, then adjust. Pivot. Rocky, no. You are in the business of pivot, okay? That's just what this business is all about. And you are in the business of pivot, and you're just going to need to be prepared to change, because it might be one thing that you thought, and then it changes into another, or you don't allow pets and then you do. You always have the right to change. I want to make that clear. You don't have to make agreements on anything. You can declare to the world that I am just starting, and I am testing and learning, and I am just not going to give up. That's the only commitment you need to make that you don't pivot on, is don't give up. Everything else, pivot. You will pivot. Accept it. And you'll have a much better journey. I promise. So you can also, on the pets, you could like limit the number of pets. Most people don't have like more than 3. Some people do. And again, if they do, take a double security deposit plus pet deposits. People will pay for that. I've done that before. That's okay. Just cover yourself financially, but go with the industry standard. I mean, if the pet deposit is $250, don't take $1,000. Like, nobody's going to pay that anyway. So unless they have bad credit and you can convince them, that's why. But nonetheless, and then on the smoking, let's pivot. We just used our new word, pivot. Let's pivot to that. So on the no smoking, so cigarettes, again, most people don't really smoke that much anymore, but in the lease agreement, it says no smoking. Most leases have box like, this property allows smoking, this property does not allow smoking. And then you can put the types of smoking. What is smoking? I know we have the now new forms of smoking through vaping, and then people smoke pot. I would include that as smoking because it creates a smell, right? And vaping is just, who knows what that is even anyway, and what the liabilities of that is going to be as time goes on. But anyway, you could just say no to all that. That's called smoking, okay? And but the lease says that, plus the application typically says, are you a smoker? So you have kind of two check and balances. If they end up smoking, I mean, that's where the security deposit comes in. Like, and if they did smoke in the home, I've definitely had that happen. I've had properties, again, when I say I've had properties, I either mean my personal rental properties or apartments, or I mean like the properties in which I've managed, or I mean the properties that I help my investors buy that we didn't manage, but I came back to them, or they came back to me when they wanted to sell it, or get my advice on it, or I helped them, do a little rehab on it to get it ready to go back on the market or something like that. But yeah, if it was smoked in, and it does fall back on the landlord for whatever reason. Like one time we had one property where the people did drugs, and yeah, they didn't care. We found pipes and all kinds, like they were definitely on some heavy drugs. Anyway, that they were there a few years, and then it went to hell for them. So don't know what happened, but nonetheless, we had to pick up the pieces, and so we did. And that property was smoked in a lot, and you could smell it heavily. So what we had to do, repaint the home. That's just what you do. And any of the carpet, we had to rip that out. And then again, you could Kiltz the floor. You don't really have to do that in a smoking home, but you totally could. We had another one time where the seller, lived in it for 30 years and smoked every day. So yeah, in that one, we did Kiltz the floor. We sure did. And we Kiltz the walls too. Primed the walls before the paint. So the painters Kiltz, primed, then painted. And then you can put like smelly things in the air vents. That helps. That really helps. You can get those you put them, like they're the things you put in your car when you want to smell in the vent. You just put that in the air conditioning vents. You could do that. You could also get the air conditioning company to come out and clean the vents. You have to be careful about that, because you have to work with the right people. Because I've noticed, I have been a part of, I have heard stories that there are upsells that try to come into that. So be careful with that, but that is definitely a possibility. And then I would say, you can set yourself up with safeguards like that, and you can help qualify about them not being a smoker. But if they smoke, they smoke. I will say it's rare. That's been my experience. Like, it's not as common as you think. I mean, honestly, the pet's going to probably destroy the property more than the smoker, but it's okay. It's just part of it. And I would even say on the pet, it's not as common as you think. I mean, most, I would say at least 80% of the tenants that you approve, again, if you work with a property manager and a leasing agent because they're professionals, I mean, that's their job, is to help you qualify good tenants, do the due diligence on the front end and make sure the proper information is collected and gathered and verified and checked and balanced. And then it's a pretty good chance you're going to find someone that's decent. And then if they're not decent, deny them. Don't be afraid to deny. Do not be afraid to deny. You have to be not afraid to deny an applicant if they're not a fit for the property. So that's the scoop on these furry critters or slimy critters, reptiles. And also, yeah, there's another element of this pets thing. That is it just lost it. The ones that you get a certificate and emotional support animals. Yeah, that's getting a little crazy. Okay, I will say, like, people are having miniature horses that are emotional support animals, lizards. I saw Wally, the emotional support crocodile that like visits hospitals, which is very strange, but it happens, and it's getting a little wild. But that is also the rare thing. And each state has its own rules about that. And I think there's some national law. I can't remember. I mean, animals are not a protected class. That would be with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. But Anyway, emotional support. They're usually in the state guidelines, the state tenant codes and landlord regulations, which is typically all the property code here in Texas anyway. But don't let that hold you back. Like these are like these things that people get caught up on and then they don't do anything. Don't be one of those people. Don't let being fearful of approving someone with an emotional support peacock hold you back from buying rental property. It's just not the point. The point is, if you're able and willing, go for it. Get started and get your life on track to build generational wealth for you and your family for generations to come. You will be the one that changes the entire financial trajectory of your lineage. That is what we're talking about here. So I hope this helps give some facts and some considerations. But the takeaway for sure is this is part of the business. Enjoy the ride. Like these will be funny stories one day if it does happen to you. But the point is you learn, you get up, you pivot, and you keep moving forward. Okay? Hope that helps. And we will see you later. Have a blessed rest of your day, night, week, morning, whatever. Okay, bye-bye.